Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look once again at the medical mentality. In my previous video we took a look at almost a dozen beliefs that the current medical system has. I'd like to counter some of those beliefs. Right off the bat, the medical mentality insists that diseases just pop out of nowhere. You're just fine today and tomorrow, boom, here it comes. It just fell out of the sky. We don't know what's causing it. According to the medical mentality, diseases are due to inappropriate signals. Now, that's a convenient one right there. This allows the educational systems to brainwash these young medical students so that they can negate the law of cause and effect. If there is no cause, or if it's an inappropriate signal, then we have to interfere with the communication process. So it's okay to use poisons to not let that happen. So right off the bat, diseases are not due to inappropriate signals. Diseases are part of our feedback system. They're telling us we're making mistakes. And therefore, disease doesn't fall out of the sky. It just doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's based on the things we're doing day after day after day after day. Some of these symptoms take decades to manifest. Now, how about the germ theory? Well, the germ theory of disease just totally falls apart. That's why they had to invent the virus. And it's all a distraction. It's all voodoo. Evil germs, evil spirits, evil viruses. When you look at the word virus, first of all, it just means poisonous substances. So a lot of things can fit in that virus category, including our own dead cells. And this is what we have to understand if you want to make any sense out of medicine. Because it isn't the germ. The bacteria are a consequence of the disease, they're not the cause. However, as I mentioned many times recently, there's that ripple effect where what we got can come back and cause something. So yes, many times bacteria can be cofactors to some of more symptoms. But it's just like oxidative stress. It's a subsequent cause. It's not the primary cause. Just like diabetes, it's a subsequent cause, not a primary cause. So what is the primary cause? Are there really tens of thousands of diseases, or is there just basically one disease? A unity of disease, a oneness of disease? Yes, there is. And old people don't have to get sick. That's all a lie. Only old people who live incorrectly and damage their body do they get sick. And what's the best solution if we do? It's through nutrition. It's through fasting. It's understanding how to apply the art if the body's damaged. And we have to realize that when it comes to health, health care is self-care. There is no expert out there but you. You create your illnesses and you can reverse them and prevent them just simply by making your choices, understanding the disease process. So what is the disease process? It's all about waste matter everywhere. Waste matter, waste matter, waste matter. Our species is swimming in our own filth. It's part of living. Cells eat and cells poop. Everything that lives does that. And guess what? We have things to take care of that waste. It's called bacteria. Bacteria aren't the bad guys. They're the good guys, man. They eat our shit. They eat the waste matter from our cells. They're good guys. Now, obviously, if there's some bacteria eating that shit over there, we don't want that inside us. We got our own shit we got to deal with, right? We do. And it's interesting that if we don't deal with our own waste matter internally, we get sick. That's one big way we get sick. But then when we do get rid of our waste matter, if we don't handle it properly, we get sick again. And this is what happened with all of these diseases. That vaccine supposedly came along and eradicated. That's all a lie too. Most of those diseases, all but one I'll talk about in a second, was due to poor sanitation. Remember the Industrial Revolution a couple hundred years ago? We started moving into cities, industrialized countries, moved into cities. We couldn't handle our own waste matter. And it was the combination of the waste matter out there and the waste matter in us that made us sick. That's why not everyone got sick, because some people were cleaner inside. But it's all about waste matter. Now, to put things in perspective, or to illustrate my point, look what happened at the Roman Empire in the West and in the East when it was conquered, 1,000 years apart. The conquerors came in, they did the same thing conquerors always do. They read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, they destroyed the infrastructure. That's how you defeat your enemy. How do you kill a bunch of people? Well, just destroy their aqueducts and their sewage systems, and they'll be swimming in filth, and they'll die of disease. They won't have any good drinking water. This is what we do. And that's what they did to the Roman Empire. And guess what happened both times? The plague broke out. Those types of diseases are diseases of filth. So most of the diseases, all but one, that the vaccine supposedly eradicated were diseases of filth. Google plumbing problems. That's what it was. It was a plumbing problem. This was not an advancement in medicine. And these are more lies that we hear. Advancement in medicine. That's why we're living longer. No, at the turn of the century, a lot of children didn't make it to adulthood. So that skews the numbers. We only live to be 49 or whatever that low number is. Look what modern medicine did. It wasn't modern medicine. It was plumbing. And then if you understand that happened, don't factor those numbers into all the numbers, and we don't live to 49. We always live like we always do. We always have. Look back at how long people lived a long time ago. The reason why we weren't living very long a century ago, plumbing problems. We grew too fast, couldn't handle it. So that's what it basically is. Most of it, though, is our own waste matter inside of us coming back into us. That's where most of our diseases are coming from. Now, the key here is we have to take responsibility. That's the main difference. We're told it's not our fault. It's told that it doesn't matter what you eat, the diet doesn't make a difference. You only live a year or two longer, not worth it. It's not your fault. They tell us what we want to hear, isn't it? That's exactly the medical mentality. Just keep doing what you're doing. We don't study it, we don't know about it, but we know it's not the problem. What they don't know is the wrong food damages us, then we can't get rid of our own waste matter. So yeah, our own waste matter is the problem. It's waste matter everywhere. So we have diseases due to internal pollution and diseases due to external pollution. And again, all those diseases that were supposedly ratified, if you look at the graphs from 1860 to 1960, read the book Dissolve in Illusions. They use graphs that I saw in other books long ago that show what happened in a 100-year period of time. Every decade, the diseases were going down 10%. Why? Because they figured the problem, it was a plumbing problem, they were fixing it every century. Where finally it was eradicated completely. Interestingly, the countries that didn't use the vaccine saw a complete eradication. The ones that did use them kept seeing the disease. And that explains most of the diseases that vaccines eradicated. The only one it doesn't explain is polio. And this one boils my blood because we're so deceived by this. Polio was caused by DDT. The people who rule the world are sick. They're up there laughing at us while they're spraying poisons on our plants that are designed to kill the bugs, paralyze them, right? Think about it. That's what happened. They didn't find the cure for this. They caused it. They knew what they were doing. They were seeing how to poison us and to see if we'd buy the bullshit story. It was a virus. Here's the vaccine. That's all a lie. DDT is what causes polio. They stopped using it. Hey, we found the cure. Isn't that convenient? Think about what I'm saying here. There are sick people who did this on purpose, spraying poisons on our plants and watching us get paralyzed and laughing at us while they're saying, ha ha, it's a virus. In order to understand this, you have to understand who the father of modern virology is and who he worked for. Thomas Rivers worked for Rockefeller. Go back to 1910. Learn a little bit about medical history. The 1910 Flexner Report. I used to always think it started back then, but really it started way back from ever. But in 1910, Flexner was hired by Rockefeller and Carnegie to go out and evaluate all the medical schools. And it turned out about 2 out of 3 medical schools were homeopathic. They were getting better results than the other third that were allopathic, that were on their way out. But remember, Rockefeller's grandfather was a snake oil salesman selling fake cancer cures, and that's exactly what Rockefeller was doing. And he manipulated the medical industry, gave them like $50 million over a 50-year period of time. So they'd have an unfair advantage and eventually weed the rest of them out. Then they come up with the vaccine cures, and all of a sudden they start passing all these state medical acts, especially in the late 1930s, giving allopathic medicine a monopoly on an industry that should not even exist. You fools out there doing research on heart disease and cancer, you're not supposed to do research on a disease that's not supposed to exist. It's not supposed to exist. You don't do research on finding how to treat it. We know the cause. We know the solution. Look at Joel Fuhrman's book, Eat to Live, page 51, a great graph. Unrefined plant food and killer diseases. Killer diseases, two specifically, heart disease and cancer. On one side of the graph, we have countries that are consuming 90% unrefined plant food. That means only 10% of their diet comes from animal products and processed foods. They only have a 5% incidence of people dying of heart disease and cancer. It's not because they're not living long enough, it's because they're not eating the things that are causing it. You look at the other side of the graph, it's just the opposite. Countries that are consuming 10% unrefined plant food, 90% animals and processed foods, have about 80-90% incidence of heart disease and cancer. These are preventable diseases. The graph is almost perfectly symmetrical. As countries eat more plant food, unprocessed foods, the less of those diseases they have. But remember, no one's out there eating raw food, so we can't say, look at these people are living to be 200. Look, you have no proof. So when you get in discussions like this with people who have the wrong mentality, they got sucked into this system, they're going to deny that there are two tests. Remember, there are two tests that you have to use when you use logic. Conventional medicine fails the simple test, mons ponens. So every time you're talking to someone and they start trying to get you to look for logical fallacies in their details, just scream, mons ponens! Shut up, mons ponens, you already failed one test. I don't care if you can pass that test. Don't you get it? Yeah, look at the logic. Look, there's no logical fallacies in my contents. Look at what he said here. Look what he said here. I don't care. I'm not going to get distracted. Why? Because he already failed the mons ponens test. Put the cart before the horse. You don't treat a symptom for a problem within your control. You don't do research for a problem within your control. It's a distraction. We have to take responsibility, realize that the vast majority of our problems on both sides, illnesses and ill behaviors, are self-inflicted. We got to take responsibility and stop believing the lies that they've been feeding us for eons. For as long as I can remember, we've been brainwashed to believe a certain way, and it's not true. So, where do we begin? Open up your mind. Test an idea as time has come. That's the first of my three-step process so we can see what we're missing. It's a solid food vacation. I got a playlist down below in the description box. And there are 28 related videos. And remember, whenever you're trying to discuss anything with anybody, they're going to do two things. First of all, take the spotlight off the mons ponens. Look at my logical fallacies. There's no logical fallacies. They're going to try to get you lost in the details. Don't get tricked in looking into the details. They already failed logic. They failed the structure test. You don't start at what you got when it's within your control. Only when it's outside your control do you deal with the effect. That's why they name the effects. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to try to prove you wrong or try to point out something negative about it. And I got one big question for those clowns. What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you trying to prove what I'm saying is wrong? Why don't you try to prove it's right? All you have to do is test an idea as time has come. And when you do, I guarantee you, you're in for a treat.